Welcome to Zoological World. Today we will discuss about earthworm incredible earthworm facts. Here are some facts about this essential invertebrate. Earthworms writhe when people pick them up because the pressure causes their muscles to contract, and the very salt in the person's skin is toxic to them. Does this mean it hurts a worm to be picked up? There are three categories. There are worms that don't burrow but live in leaf litter or compost. There are worms that feed on and burrow into soil. And there are worms that dig deep burrows into the soil and come to the surface to eat plant material. The longest ever found was a member of the Amynthas meconjanus species. This 10-foot-long worm was found on the muddy banks of Southeast Asia's Mekong River. There are about 180 species of earthworm in the United States and Canada, and about 60 of them are invasive. Baby worms do not undergo any sort of metamorphosis such as that seen in amphibians and insects. They are tiny replicas of their parents and simply get bigger. Scientific name and classification. Because there are so many species of earthworms, there are many scientific names for them, and biologists put much thought into their classification. Biologists do agree that they belong to the phylum Annelida, which means little rings in Latin, and to the Opisthophora order. This order has 8 families. Appearance. These worms have some of the most identifiable anatomies of all invertebrates. Who hasn't seen the long segmented, slimy pink, gray or brown cylinder, pinched at both ends? That is an earthworm? But if you look at it through a magnifying glass, you might see that its segments, save its front and back, are covered with rows of tiny hairs called setae. These help steady the animal as it moves and anchor it when it mates. The number of segments the worm has depends on its species. The mouth is also protected from ingesting unwanted soil by a flap called a prostomium. The prostomium also helps the worm feel and sense where it is. Some worms use this structure to grab onto vegetation and bring it into their burrow to eat. By the way, the worm doesn't have teeth, though it has a strong mouth full of muscles to push its food into its digestive system. Earthworms lack ears and eyes, but they can still sense their environment. They can sense light through structures called the light cells of Hess, and receptors that can sense vibrations, touch, taste, and smell. A person will also notice that the worm has swelling over a few of its segments near the front. This is the Clitellum, and it houses the animal's reproductive system. The back of the body is often cylindrical, but it can be different shapes depending on the species. The cylinder's last segment, the periproct, has the anus. Population. These worms are notoriously abundant, and even in those places where they're invasive, it is difficult to get rid of them. The one thing humans can do is not to transport species of earthworms to places where they are not native. This can be tough because it's hard to tell them apart. Scientists can only be sure of their classification through minuscule differences in anatomy, such as the number of segments or whether the male pores are in front of or behind the female pores.